welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to read this book called The Best Seat in Second Grade. The Best Seat in Second Grade by Catherine Kenna, pictures by Abby Carter. This page has a contents. It has Hamster Helper, Pocket Rider, The Animal Zone, Sam's favorite subject. How can that be a subject? If it's going to be a subject, let's read. Hamster Helper. Sam had the best seat in second grade. He sat at the back of room 75. He did not sit near the globe or the dinosaur models or the paper pioneer fort. Sam sat beside George Washington. Who's George Washington? There's the globe. There's the dinosaur models. George Washington was small and round and the color of honey, and he sneezed. George Washington was a hamster. Sam loved George Washington more than anything else at school. George Washington was Sam's favorite subject. How can a hamster be a subject? I don't know. Sam's teacher, Mr. Hopper, asked, "Who knows something about lava? It pops out of volcanoes," said Sam. "The way George Washington pops out of his nest." Someone in the front row giggled. "Good answer," said Mr. Hopper. Every Monday, Mr. Hopper picked a new hamster helper. The hamster helper got to feed George Washington. The hamster helper got to make toys out of boxes and tubes. The hamster helper got to play with George Washington. "Please, please, oh, please," Sam groaned. "Pick me." He crossed his fingers and held his breath. Mr. Hopper reached into the bowl of names. "Miguel," he said. "You are our new hamster helper." "Oh boy," said Miguel. "Oh no," said Sam. "It is never my turn." Sam was tired of waiting to be hamster helper. He was sure George Washington was tired of his cage. Sam wanted to show George Washington the world outside of room 75. "Don't forget," Mr. Hopper reminded his class, "tomorrow is our trip to the Science Museum. Bring your coats, bring your lessons, lunches, and bring your permission slips." Sam decided to bring something extra. What is that extra thing going to be? Pocket Rider. The Science Museum was busy and bright and crowded. "Stay in your groups," called Mr. Hopper. "The animal sticker on your name tag will tell you which group you are in. Grasshoppers stick together. Frogs stick together. Dolphins stick together. We don't want anyone to get lost." "Sam," said Nina, "where is your name tag?" "In my coat," Sam replied. He reached deep into his pocket and patted George Washington. "What?" Sam looked at the sticker on his name tag. "I'm a grasshopper." "Good," said Nina. "I am too." The grasshoppers and frogs and dolphins hung up their coats. "Sam," said Ollie, "it's warm in here. Why don't you take off your coat?" "I can't," Sam said quickly. "I might catch a cold." George Washington sneezed. "Hurry up," called Sophie. "We are going to the star show at the planetarium." Sam followed the other grasshoppers. He walked slowly and kept his hand over his pocket. The planetarium was round and dark. The class wiggled and waited in rows of seats. When the first star twinkled above, Sam took George Washington out of his pocket. "Make a wish," he whispered. George Washington sneezed. No one noticed George Washington, lucky for him. When the grasshoppers whirled through the tunnel, George Washington's whiskers blew backwards. Ah! When the grasshoppers made faces in front of the funny mirrors, George Washington looked like a furry beach ball with huge eyes. No one noticed George Washington. Why are they going to notice him? The grasshoppers climbed through a giant seashell. They peered into homes of the future. They poked and laughed as bubbles are black. George Washington watched and listened and sneezed. Finally, Ollie sat on a bench. "I can't walk another step," he said. "I'm hungry," said Nina. "I'm thirsty," said Miguel. "Me too," grumbled Sophie. Sam did not want to eat lunch. George Washington might smell something yummy and pop right out of his pocket. I'll catch up with you later, Sam said as he dashed down the hall. But Sam, Nina called, where are you going? Grasshoppers are supposed to stick together. Animal Zone. Sam ran upstairs and saw a sign for the Animal Zone. He took a deep breath and said, wait until you see what is here. He held up George Washington in front of each display. They looked up baby rabbits and baby chicks. George Washington sneezed. Oh, there's chicks and there's rabbits and there's George Washington. Don't look, Sam whispered when they reached a tank of boa constrictors. George Washington trembled. Now, said Sam, here is the best place of all. The hamster habit was a jumble of tubes and tunnels. There were hamster-sized wheels and ladders and slides. That's a tube, that's a hamster wheel, that's a slide. Slide? Hamsters were everywhere. They were small, they were all round, they were all the color of honey. Look, Sam whispered to George Washington. Family! Oh, there's the ladder. I don't know what kind of tube that is. Are you hungry? What are you doing? Step clattered down the hall as the rest of the grasshoppers rushed towards Sam. There you are, Sam, they shouted. Are you all right? I'm fine, said Sam. I was just showing the hamsters too. He stopped talking. George Washington was in his hands. George Washington was right in front of Ollie, Miguel, Sophie, and Nina. Everyone noticed George Washington. Sam, cried Nina, what have you done? Before he could answer, George Washington jumped out of Sam's hands and into the hamster hammock. Sam's favorite subject. Sam screamed. He did not move. Oh no, Sophie groaned. Ollie yelled at Sam. Nina yelled at Ollie. Miguel shouted, help! Mr. Hopper hurried up the stairs to the Animal Zone. The frogs and dolphins followed right behind him. What's wrong? Called Mr. Hopper. The grasshoppers pointed to Sam. He pointed to the hamster habitat. Sam moaned. He's gone. Who? Asked Mr. Hopper. George Washington, mumbled Sam. He's in there. Everybody stared at the sea of busy hamsters. There are too many of them, said the frogs. We'll never find him, said the dolphins. We have to try, said the grasshoppers. Sam's whole class spread out around the sides of the hamster habitat. Look for something small, said Ollie. And round, said Miguel. And the color of honey, said Sophie. They're all round in the size of the... They looked at the hamsters climbing and digging, and at hamsters spinning and growing, at hamsters shrinking and eating and sleeping. Who was sleeping? You are sleeping. You are digging. You are drinking. You are eating. And you are maybe growing. Sam stood still and watched one nest shake and tremble like a volcano. Out of a nest. Just like lava. Suddenly a hamster popped out of the nest just like lava. The hamster was small and round and the color of honey, and it sneezed. George Washington, cried Sam. He reached down and scooped their hamster into his hands. Nina said, I knew we'd find him. George Washington is Sam's favorite subject. The next day, Sam carried George Washington's cage to the front of room 75. I think he might be safer near you, he said. Mr. Hopper smiled. Good idea. What is he writing down on this piece of paper? Sam slowly walked back into his seat. Class, asked Mr. Hopper. Can you think of anything else we should move up to the front? Sam, yelled the frogs and dolphins and all of the grasshoppers. Good answer, said Mr. Hopper. George Washington sneezed. Why does he keep sneezing? Sam grinned and pushed his desk to the front of room 75. For the rest of the year, he sat between his teacher and George Washington. Sam had the best seat in second grade. The end. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos.